Hey Larry, how are you doing?
Pretty good, Scott. You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you good.
Okay, good.
How are things going over at Registry?
Going good.
Yeah.
We're may have a nice summer day here.
Oh, great. Hey,
Hey,
hey Roger, how are you doing?
you good? You hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Great.
All right. We'll just give it another couple minutes to see who else joins today. Roger, are you at the Public Health Informatics Conference this week?
That's
Or
where I've been, but I just made it back to the office. They were having their final plenary.
okay, gotcha.
I figured I could sleep better at this conference than that.
I've never been to that one. Um, it's in Atlanta, or
It seems to have been, yeah. I don't know that it's always there.
yeah. I'd never heard of it until someone was asking me if someone was from Instead was there this year, and I was like, I don't think so. But is it mostly domestic health informatics kind of stuff, or does it have a global slant as well?
It's got sort of a global track. Like there were maybe 8 presentations in the global track.
Okay.
Um, Out of what I think there were like only 9 sessions, nine time slots for sessions. So
Yeah. Okay. Um, so I know. So Ed's about to join here in just a minute, but I thought I'd take a second just to ask if you guys had any I don't know, burning issues or things that you would specifically like to discuss. One kind of long pending topic for the community that we haven't talked about in a while is kind of doing a refresh of our mission, vision, and values for this community, kind of things that we adhere by and that type of thing. I think we've had a couple informal conversations maybe 6 months ago or a year ago to that regard, but some of the other communities are going through a little more formal process there. So that's kind of one potential topic we were proposing for today. But yeah, Roger and Larry, if there's specific things that you'd like to talk about, we'd love to hear those too.
This is Larry. I really don't have anything other than what you talked about.
Okay.
I mean that's an okay topic with me. I guess you know, I'd like to see what our action agenda is. Our roadmap, but take the issues that we look and which ones are we actually going to start working on now, or are we working on if there's work going on that.
Well, Roger, I think you just muted yourself. 1 second.
Okay, good. I was making sure I hadn't muted myself.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So whatever. I mean, I know we have to do the mission stuff. So if we can get it out of the way, let's do that.
Okay. Well, maybe we could tie the two together because I think they're certainly related. And I think I would love to hear, we're kind of simultaneously doing some road mapping work, and we discussed that in some of our past calls too. So, yeah, I think both of those sound pretty good to me. Um, Ed, anything burning things that you would want to discuss today?
there you go. No, I wouldn't. I don't think there's anything we need to discuss. I think it might be good to just tell folks about the internationalization work that's starting to happen, because I think it was actually a question that Roger had in one of the previous calls, and so it's just I guess we can just we give people little updates about the tool and things like that are concrete towards the end.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. All right. So I think I'm just trying to pull together a document so we can start to draft some of I guess the mission, vision, and values for us. So let me share a doc through the Hangout here. 1 second, or I can share a link as well. So while I get this started, Ed, I know in the past, and I was trying to pull it up from like some of the old Disscussion wiki stuff and things like that, but did you go through a process like this way back before I got involved with the community?
Yes. It was a long time ago. We were young and naive. No. But we actually did go through some of the process, and it should have been all there in the Disscussion wiki. But if not, maybe I can try to find other ancillary artifacts.
Yeah. Well, I guess I only asked because I thought it might be helpful to kind of give a little bit of like history of the community, where we started and kind of how we've evolved to date.
Okay, so you want me to like narrate that a little bit now while you set up?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Wayback Machine. Wow. So I guess it was 2010. Mark Landry, Paul Beyondich. Mark Landry was in PEPFAR. Paul Beyondich, Chris Seibert, myself, and Dennis from Instead. We got together kind of with a rough concept note that we thought that PEPFAR's work could take on a more kind of like a patient-centric design approach, and that fundamental to taking that patient-centric approach to evaluating performance and planning care and so on was going to have good health informatics and data that would be able to help see how the patient evolution as they get better in their disease, and as a way to help have better performance metrics. So informatics was going to enable actually us to take that that patient-centric view. That was taken nicely by PEPFAR, and a thing called the HIPPP got created, Health Informatics Private-Public Partnership, and the goal of that was to help implement, was to define a reference architecture for health information systems applicable to low-income countries, and help the support of a couple of reference implementations in specific countries where that general architecture would meet specific needs, rubber would hit the road, and things would be adapted locally, and you would start a cycle of take the learnings into the reference architecture and help implement. That led to the work in Rwanda that added on top of previous funding from Rockefeller and others, and also helped implement some work around HIV data and patient identification in Cambodia, and there were also a couple of other like ancillary reference countries. And it was that experience that then led to a reformulation of the mission and the creation of OHIE, saying let's actually make it the explicit mission of this group, this collaboration group, to come up with that architecture and set of products and assist with the varying levels of arm's length the implementation in concrete countries. So as OHIE, just before OHIE got started, we had already started working with many eHealth implementers that were leaders in technology for low-income countries and had vast experiences there, and starting to accrete the common requirement set around facility registries and what was needed to interoperate better with that data, what was needed to have that data be created in all the right places and sent to a trustworthy repository, and what sort of places did it need to go from there so that it could be consumed. So you might see like archaeological references to something called the FRED project, and it was just an acronym saying Facility Registry, blah blah blah. I don't remember what it was, but it essentially was the first attempt at having this collaborative group come together and help define those requirements. From those requirements, it was very clear that initially we just started suggesting existing standards and conventions to exchange facility data between systems, and we kind of implemented we implemented it, but then there were more and more people coming in, and this is at the point in time where folks like DHIS and others were coming in, and the pre-existing standards were kind of falling a bit short out of some expectations. We were doing data exchange standards, but our community wanted to have more specific ways to manage identifiers, for example, and have some semantics in that data exchange that were specific to health facilities. So in order to keep the intersection of the simple interop standards that were needed for these sort of environments, and the simplicity and help others build around them, and the need of the specific facility semantics, we started with the first FRED API, which was a nickname we get to the Facility Registry API, under the umbrella of the FRED initiative. And that led to actually multiple e-health providers contributing to that, having debates in this same community forum about the needs and the priorities, and arriving to the first exchange spec that allows like two systems to exchange facility data in a simple form. The spec doesn't cover every nook and cranny, and it still has many things that we've identified inside this community that we need to be done in order to make it robust for a lot of ancillary cases. But for the core case of I need to have a list of facilities from a system, tell me that, and I want to clearly identify the identifiers and other metadata about them, it fulfills that goal. And ComCare, well, obviously Incident Resource Map, which is the reference implementation for the facility registry, DHIS, and a bunch of other tools did a demonstration where we were all exchanging data using this simple API. And Scott, I don't know, do you?
Yeah, no, I think that
was too detailed, but I got carried away by.
No, I think that's helpful. Thanks, Ed, for doing that. So I just sent a link through the Google chat, or the Google Hangout here. You'll see there's like a little bar on the right side of the screen, hopefully. And there's a link to a Google Doc where I was starting to frame out a little bit of mission, vision, and values. And then also we could use it as a bit of a shared document for doing some road mapping as well. Yes.
Can I ask a question of Ed?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Is the FRED document that's out on the website? Is that the clearest explication of what the current standard is? Are there other documents that have features that have been defined but not implemented and therefore are not described? Or is there more to it than what we can see?
If you look into the right places, that's all there is to it. But I'm sure that there must be more places than what you've found so far. That is actually one of the things why we're excited about putting a better website out, is because we can actually paint a picture of these are all the places where the conversation is happening, right? And these are all the artifacts that you care about. So let me very briefly share a couple of resources that are important. First of all, there is this website that has the API we defined inside this community that follows some standards, but is basically a convention on top of JSON about this data exchange. This is the result, the distillation of all the collaborative effort that led to this is documented inside a GitHub repository that has all the issues that were voted on and like all the dialogue and the conversation around them and the prioritization and so on. I think in of itself, that is a massively useful resource, because it actually shows you the dialogue about the requirements from all the parties, both the producer and the consumer side, and and like what was the result. So that GitHub repository. It doesn't have interesting code. It has interesting issues and all the voting process around the issues and all the prioritization process. That is for that API. Then there's another subset of work around the CSD effort, right? That was that OHIE profile that we sponsored last year, and that in of itself had its own discussion lists and discussion lists, not much more, and its own like draft review process that was not held through open bug tracking tools, but was a bit more done like through the, adding of comments into a Word doc, and then people accepting those comments and things like that. We still have let me see, I'm looking here. We still tackled some of that feedback in the GitHub, because we feel that it's important to have those issues documented and out in the open. But I think that we might need to go in and clean up a little bit. There's a couple of things I see need an update. So if you look at that second link I just pasted in the chat to the right, that's a GitHub place where we documented the issues that we found with OHIE and tracks whether they were actually resolved or not and incorporated as feedback into the profile.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do a review of OHIE, the first place to start is to look at the items that were not accepted and see if it's a good time to put them back in, or if we have a better understanding of how to bring in those requirements into a better proposal and have it back in. Does that help paint a better picture?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey,
and then there's the code repositories for the tools themselves and things like that. But I think that it's better if we focus on the exchange standards here.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I wanted to take a second and just welcome Mark to the call. Mark, I don't think we've met before, and if you can hear us, maybe just you could take a second to introduce yourself, and maybe we could do a quick introduction since most of us already know each other.
Yeah, cool. I'm a master student at UIO, University of Oslo.
Okay.
I'm supposedly changing my master subject to turn DHS into also sort of a facility register kind of thing.
Okay,
That
great.
is, I have a meeting with Knut Staring, you might know him,
Yes. Yeah.
about that tomorrow, and with Lars. I'm also working as a developer on DHS. Recently joined the team actually almost, I think 4 months ago. And I don't know, I did some stuff. The menu is changed now, which is kind of what I did, sort of thing, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. That's about it, I guess. I don't have very much more to say.
Oh, great. Well, welcome to the community. It's always good to see a new face, and definitely, offline or however, if it would be helpful to get you caught up to speed, we're always happy to help do that kind of thing. And we have a number of resources and wikis and all kinds of different repositories of interesting stuff that you might find useful for your work too. So.
Right, cool.
Okay. Maybe we could just take a few seconds for each person on the call just to introduce yourself to Mark as well, just so he knows who all else is on the call.
Start with yourself.
Oh yeah, good idea. I'm Scott Teasdale. I work for Instead, and I'm the community manager for the facility registry community here. And yeah, it's good to meet you.
Cool. Nice.
All right, I'll go next. And Ed Jazierski, CEO of Instead, and also working on helping lead the facility registry community. I'm also part of the OHIE leadership team at large, and I'm a geek at heart, so you always have to try to pull me out of the technical stuff. But I've worked on many open source and large scale community implementations and design of things before, so it's fun to be applying this in the health and humanitarian space.
Right. Cool.
I'm Jim Grace. I work for HISP US, or maybe I should say I am HISP US. also working for University of Oslo. Good to see you, Mark.
Yeah, I saw you in some CCs and some emails, I think.
Yes.
And I think we're also going to do the step-far thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Been doing a lot of PEPFAR thing recently.
Yes.
All right, Larry?
Yeah, this is Larry Libben. I'm from Registry Institute, and I'm working on the OpenHIE project and on several of the communities.
Yeah, that's easy.
And I'm Roger Friedman. I work in the Health Information Systems team at the Division of Global AIDS at the Centers for Disease Control. I've worked with DHIS2 in Ghana. I've worked with OpenMRS. I've been working on OpenHIE.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. So, Mark, I'm not sure if you saw the link. I'll put it in the Google Hangout link here again. But today we were trying to just, quickly confirm our mission, vision, and values of the community. I think it's always helpful to kind of re-solidify these things. And I put some things that have been recurrent themes that we've always tried to reinforce about the community already in there. But I would certainly love to hear feedback from you guys on things that you would really like to see this community achieve as kind of its overall goal, or actual values that we want to make sure that we adhere to. So I don't know is everyone able to see the document?
I can.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Scott, I'm gonna like take my my executive coach hat here for a second, and I'm gonna flip some things around, right?
Yeah, of course.
Vision is and is to get is really what we imagine the world could look like. What is a better world, right? In our mind, and what is the purpose of our group is to get it there. And so let's start with those two. There's many ways to do this. One of the things that we should do, that we should go through the archaeological process of finding what we did the last time. Unfortunately, the documents were all in a wiki that now not all of us have access. But it's okay to just take it as input and to a new revised version. And sometimes it's nice to start from a blank slate to see what you will write is different. But I can act as a bit of a voice of the past and say, hey, what was the vision? And the vision was that like health services are improved through the use of up-to-date and relevant facility data. And it was something like that. But and I don't know, Scott, if you, I'll write it in the document.
No, I can.
But the whole idea, it was that to imagine a world where what we care about, which is, patients getting better and, people getting ambulances and, facilities having fridges and, people getting referred to the right place, is all possible because there is better facility data. And that was like a starting point. But let's just take an open collaborative process here, and instead of trying to wordsmith or change or debate specific sentences, just feel free to comment and add things, and then it's actually Scott's and I's job to, in a way, distill that into English words that then the community can comment on. Otherwise, it becomes like a committee wordsmithing exercise, and everybody will kill themselves. So what is the vision that you guys have for that? And I'm going to ask from a very conceptual question. Like, you're spending time here, right? And there's some. I hope that there's some sense of autonomy and volition in being on these calls. That you are here because you think that they are valuable to the world somehow. So let me ask you, like, why, the 5 whys sort of thing. What is it that you? How do you think the world will be better in the future because of our efforts? What does a great change in the way health systems look like because of our efforts here. Jim, why are you here? What is inspiring that makes you? I mean, I have to wake up early, so I have to have something. But, so how do you think the world will be better because of our activities here?
Well, I think one of the things that some of these systems do, you can see it both in a positive and a negative light. In the kind of negative light, is they prevent confusion. They prevent resources from they enable resources to be used where they make a difference to health, and not in the kind of confused morass of getting it right on the IT side. Sorry,
Okay.
I wasn't very articulate.
No, that's good. We're just, I mean, we're not aiming for articulate now. We're just aiming to see what is the sort of, I mean, shooting from the hip is valuable because it allows us to think of all the different audiences and value that you might have on the top of your head. And that's part of the value of having a community contribute to this thing. So obviously there's a vision in which people who implement ICT systems are less confused about how to have the data move around and govern it and so on about it. I don't know. Larry, Roger, Scott?
Are you seeing my edits?
Oh,
I think, I don't know who is who because we just see anonymous
Right.
elephant. But I'm assuming
Okay.
you're the elephant there.
So I'm the second and the fourth, I think they're the health facility data and citizens patients. And I'm also down in mission. Somehow I managed to have it break the line. Okay, there we go. So that second mission line I put in. That's right.
Yeah, I like your vision line that you put there, Roger. I think I think it aligns well with kind of the initial one that Ed mentioned. That was a bit of the core of the facility registry community when we first got started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. And I like it because it's more clear about who gets a value. Like, what's the, who's the audience? What's different for them?
Mm-hmm.
That's more clear. Does anybody else want to add something? What drives you here? How do you think the world could be better through whatever it is that we're doing here?
I'm not sure if it necessarily fits in the kind of vision part, and this might kind of relate a little bit to what Jim was saying, but just like the reduction of redundancy, right? And that everybody's always trying, or not always, but are trying to maintain multiple lists that overlap to some degree but aren't standardized, and you can't compare across these things. That's getting a little bit more into the weeds, but I guess it's getting at that kind of reduction of redundancy aspect and helping to share a facility list across partners and systems and users.
Okay.
Mark, I know you're new, but Larry or Mark, anything you guys would want to add, or things that you would like to see from this community?
I think
I'm just getting started, so I'm getting into the whole thing. So I'm not really contributing yet, I guess. Maybe in a little while.
Yeah, of course.
yeah, and it's Larry. I'm in the same mode, but I think you've captured it there, where it's having accurate facility data across, especially in a nationwide setting, where you can nail down all the facilities and their services and so forth. But
Okay, great. All right, so I'm just looking back to see what all we have here. There's definitely some overlap, like we were talking about. So that's, I think, always nice to see that we're in a bit of alignment. So So perhaps what if we move on to a little bit more of the mission of how we get to this place where we're actually providing facility data to improve services, kind of reduce the redundancy, help data be more available to citizens, and improve kind of their overall ability to access them by making it available. What do you think would be things that would help us to get to this place in terms of things this community wants to advocate for?
So are we in the mission?
Yeah, in the mission, the second section there. So I think I tossed the first one in, and that obviously we want to help support the implementation of facility registries, by ministries of health and preferably maintained by other stakeholders in the country. Roger, thanks for putting, obviously we want to integrate it within OHIE. So how does a facility registry kind of fit within that larger health information exchange puzzle is an important thing. Ed, do you want to say a little bit about what you're typing right now?
Yeah, sorry.
Looks like a funding proposal.
Yeah, it's but we already got the funding, right? So no, but in a way, it is a funding proposal, and this is why I actually see it as a funding proposal, because we're not going to shove this out to get more money, but we are asking you periodically to invest your time in that, and like even as nonprofits that are working in this, like choosing what you're putting your efforts in is important. So even though we're not funders and this might not necessarily go to a funder in its shape, we want other funders to be helping the OHIE process and make it more multilateral. And we want people who have expertise and experience in this area to invest their time. And if this can help them understand what it is that they're investing their time into, I think it is exactly right. So yes, in a way, it is a proposal for resources. And if we think that we're losing our way, it's good to go back to this and say, hey guys, I understand we're doing X, but I don't see how it fits with this. So it helps us invest our time better.
This is Larry. Can you indicate what LMIC means? I'm being
sorry. It's industry jargon. It's low and medium income countries.
Ah, okay, great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it's a politically correct developing country sort of thing. Is it like?
So I know we're maybe thinking a little bit about the mission part. Are there other things that you guys think should be potentially included as, the purpose of our group to get to our vision?
Sorry, what was the question, Scott?
Oh, I was just wondering if anyone had anything additional to add to the mission section of this document in terms of things that we want to advocate for to, achieve our vision.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the purpose of today's call to do a whole log frame, where you have your outputs and your, activities and your deliverables and all that stuff. So I'm trying to make sure that we don't run off that cliff, and have do a log frame all together here and stuff like that. So let's keep it to vision, mission, and values for right now. But one thing I would like to discuss with the community later on is having a statement about a measurement of impact, and then another statement around scaling strategies, right? That's something that we can take on in further calls.
Yeah, no, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think I see Roger typing some additional things in the mission here. Just taking a look. Roger, do you want to say a bit about just this one you're adding?
Yeah, it's like not not really much different probably than the second one, except like the second one is more outward looking, and maybe it's like the third, but it's, I mean, so the if we want to have standards, interoperable standards, then there needs to be a place where those interoperable standards come from and are you know worked out, and so this we would serve as a forum for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have in the past, that's been a big focus of this community, and I think we definitely want to see that continue for sure. All right. Any other closing thoughts on the mission section here?
I'm writing another one here. Prioritize feature lists for adoption by implementer groups. Okay. Maybe we need this whole word, this whole big phrase here: standards, feature lists, maybe just a big etc. All the things in the previous one. So the idea that we're not just, because of our roles with the various products that we support, we're in a position to advance facility registry issues within our own internal agendas. And so we should try and sort of like collectively decide on what the appropriate, what our sort of our internal priorities are that we'd like to see the products represent. Is that at all clear?
I think so. I think you're kind of getting at what would what are like the core aspects of a facility registry, and what are common sets of requirements that implementers have identified in the past. Is that respond to kind of what you're trying to say?
Yeah. So, for example, there's this validating a facility message, okay, that seems to be a blocker for other communities of OpenHIE. Okay, so we should step up to the plate and say, okay, we think it's a priority to get this out, and we're going to specify it, and we're going to ask the people that we know and love amongst us to use their best efforts to get it out there.
Yeah, an example might be the Fred API 1.0 version.
Right. So I mean, I think what Roger is trying to say, there's a meta thing here to add, which is in instances where people in other OHI communities run into questions or challenges, or want to share ideas around how to interact with facilities, that we actually help them and include those needs in that priorities. Is that, Roger, your point?
Yes, Edward. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Very great. All right. Well, I think we have a nice list here going. Should we move on to the values? So I kind of started to flesh out a couple values that have, been common threads throughout our existence to date. We've tried to remain technology agnostic in terms of the community. We've also tried to be requirements driven and standards based. So those are kind of three of the key ones that I could think of as being common threads to date. Any additional ones that you guys would want to add, or questions on these three?
Yeah, I do have some questions. Like if I'm trying to remember, there was this big data framework for data white paper that came out on the IHE. Is anybody familiar with that?
I don't think so. Do you have a link you could share?
Yeah, I'll try and dig up a link, because when I when I stop talking. I'm not on my regular machine here.
Okay.
But the point of it, it's sort of like laid out the various messages involved in the health exchange, and it seemed like, some of them had been implemented as services, okay, and some of them were implemented as what is the Microsoft name for, WSDL, Some of them had been expressed as like WSDL services, and other of them had been expressed more like as RESTful services. Maybe that's the division. So, can we truthfully say that we're tech agnostic, or are we more likely to build out in the platform of our reference applications?
No, I think the work of this community should be technology agnostic. I mean, technology comes and goes. I think different implementations of facility registries will have open access to the requirements this community have collected, right? And we'll be able to, build, adapt, etc. tools to become potentially better registries. I think our work in this community should be tech agnostics. We do have a commitment to have one reference implementation constantly updated to represent the best understanding of that requirement. And as OHIE, we took our resource map to be that implementation. But whatever we do in this community should be tech agnostic. Put in another way, if we come up with a tough requirement, we shouldn't say, well, that's weird for resource map, so we shouldn't take it as a requirement. Resource map has to suck it up and kind of like do whatever it takes to meet that requirement with the good qualities, performance, security, and so on. And the same thing goes for anybody. So, for example, if we say as a requirement, I don't know, the API should allow facilities to be searched throughout the whole data dictionary in full text approaches, right? Nobody should come back and saying, well, a particular tool would have challenges with that, so we shouldn't have it as a requirement, right? It's like, well, your tool has problems with it, but our requirements will not be tech-driven.
Well, let me throw this back. So, like right now, Fred, okay, is a REST-like service that delivers JSON.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have it as a service that will deliver XML, I don't think. Are we that interoperable yet? Can we specify that in our request and get it back that way?
Yeah.
And then the next layer is it's definitely not a WSDL service. Okay, so in order to stay tech agnostic, does it become a requirement on us to, it's almost like being multilingual, right? Is it?
Yeah.
Are we going to be entirely in English, or are we going to support other languages?
Yeah. So to be more specific, Fred is just one API of the many APIs we identified as useful. Before there was Fred, we had actually agreed on a different convention. And if you actually look at the GitHub issues list, having an XML version of the Fred API, which is a RESTful paradigm, in which you look at queries of data, but then having like a more SOAP, WSDL-oriented exchange around that, and have contracts that are SOAP-based, is definitely in scope if we think that that is what increases interoperability in the field as a community. What I would urge us not to do is to start adding different data formats and kind of API endpoints with no demonstrated demand of somebody who would consume that, because we could spend years just like, okay, let's make an EDFACT interface into the facility registry, while at the same time, kind of as an implementer, I would be praying nobody ever wants to use it, So I think there's a balance where if we see demonstrated demand for interoperability means, we should take them on. And the fact that the first Fred API was JSON-based was an artifact of all the e-health providers that were on those calls. The vote was to make the JSON version first as a community decision. right? It was nothing that was tool driven, and actually resource map itself has other endpoints that are XML based. Just they're not like exposed. They're exposed in the tool. They're not documented as prominently as part of the Fred exercise. But that's part of one of the things that we need to clarify, Scott, in the communication, saying any registry will have multiple endpoints. Each endpoint will probably have different, transports and contracts and things like that. And the community process is really to prioritize these. And the job of the reference implementations is to go filling them out in priority. And I think in that sense, we're in line with what you're saying, right, Roger?
My only concern is, let's suppose that you have, suppose the Mayo Clinic, okay, or Cerner, okay, was totally SOAP and WSDL based in its architecture, okay, and so they come looking around for facility registry information. The first thing they're going to look and say, is it going to fit into their architecture? It's sort of like, do we build the stadium and hope that they'll come? I know we can't build all the stadiums. We would never make any progress for the end user, but maybe we do have some obligation to look around the world and see if we can incorporate more people into the interoperability club.
Yeah, sure, but that is not being tech agnostic. What you're just saying right now is a situation that, we want to work with them and we would bring them in, but if somebody said, oh, it's great that you have already designed all these things and you've pushed some of them through OHIE, but my particular technology finds it hard to do this, I think they would have to have a hard sell to say, have everybody talk an additional endpoint because they don't want to talk one of the ones that have already been documented. So I would actually put it back on them. That said, if an important player, that has sway on the ecosystem at large, says, well, we already talked this and we're tech limited and so on, I think we can make an exception to like the tech agnosticism, so to speak, and say, okay, let's try to come up with a tech agnostic standard that accommodates the text restrictions of a particular player. But it would, in my mind, it actually is a bit undermining of the process, but I'm being judgmental about a hypothetical situation, so it's all, we're making up situations and trying to resolve them.
You're right, but if we were, I'd just come back from this conference, right, so I'm thinking in this very sort of high-level way, it's like, if we want our standard to become the standard for facility registries, then we have to involve large players in our process. Okay, not that we want to lose our focus on on the LMICs, right? Not that we want to lose our focus on the roots from which we come, but there's also a case for not having, oh, this is just an this is our club standard, right? It's not really there's no big deal to try and make everything sort of plug and play. But I guess that's all soapbox. I should probably get off of it and let us proceed to write down more values.
No. But it's an interesting discussion where we're discussing values in an indirect way, right, through a hypothetical example. So I think our values in that case would, first of all, to be collaborative, right, and to say, hey, let's learn about what your context is and what your constraints are, and so on, and with acknowledging that there's finite resources and time, see how we could include that. Having like a group like Cerner adopt and adapt to the same sort of conventions and APIs and so on that we're discussing here would actually open an ecosystem of tools to work with that health system that right now wouldn't. So I mean, there's value to the ecosystem, and if the community wants to, take steps in that direction, I mean, it's definitely something we do. Our role as moderators is not to make the decision, but rather to facilitate the decision-making process. And I think it's not a decision we would be closed to. It's just that if we spend 50% of our time trying to hook up with Cerner, and then the health facilities of places in Africa are still hard to exchange between systems, I would say that we're not prioritizing well. So maybe that's an aspect that's not a value, but it's a mission priority statement about where we hope to have our impact first.
Roger, I'm curious, are there specific people that you think would be interested in potentially engaging with this community as part of kind of your the statement around, hey, we want to, start to engage with some of the larger entities that might have sway over, how facility data is stored and shared?
Well, I would have to go like a whole theme of this 3-day conference, but there was a lot about health information exchanges going on, okay? And part of what is going on is that the Office of National Coordinator has sort of stopped funding statewide health information exchanges, and instead what's happening is that under accountable care organizations are becoming sort of like private health information exchanges. Okay, so that a hospital and doctors who practice in the hospital and doctors who refer to doctors who practice in the hospital, will all be in this accountable care organization, and they're about to have more, have more of a facility issue, okay, as they're, if you've got Cerner inside your hospital, okay, but your clinician that's working with you has just picked up on somebody else, what is it, e-health or something like that, some other system that the ONC, the recovery funds have just bought it for him, and he's just put his whole practice in there. So they're going to face all these interoperability issues that we're facing as well, okay? And so, I think we can think a little bit bigger than just the, sort of donor-driven HIS work in low-income countries that we've been used to doing. There is an opportunity, and if at the same time it means that we can hook up facilities in Africa with Cerner to participate, in larger health communities, that can only benefit, health at the global level.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, well, yeah, let's continue to unpack that, as we move forward. I think there's definitely some things for us to consider there. So we have about 10 minutes left, and at the beginning Ed mentioned just a couple updates that I think would be valuable to share with the community. One of which was internationalization of the reference facility registry tool. So we have a partner who specifically was asking for the tool in French, and so there's been some work funded to support that effort so that multiple languages can be supported through the reference facility registry tool. And so we're really looking forward to that coming about, because I think that'll support some of the different countries that are interested here.
Can I interject here a little bit? I just want to share some experience that we've had with OpenMRS, okay, about internationalization. And so in OpenMRS, of course, like just about everybody, we have a messages file that gets translated for all the messages, okay? and we have a translation file, a translation method for our concept directory. Okay, so that the same concept can exist in multiple languages. But the other pieces of metadata don't have a way to be translated. And I think it's sort of a generalized problem, with metadata-driven programs, is that the metadata itself needs to be translatable. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what route you're going, but I really think that you need to think about how that's going to be done, where the user defines the metadata as they do in resource map, right? When they define a new layer, okay, and they fill out those metadata screens, okay, all of that metadata should be translatable.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so I agree 100%. And in terms of like the roadmap, the first thing is that, internally the tool, because of the way it's built, is internationalized, but it actually never got the effort to expose like a language button, right? And little things like that. So what we're doing in the first wave actually excludes what you're saying, Roger, which I agree is super important. But it will allow the basic tool itself to function in other languages. So people who know French can see a search button and they know what it says, right? So that will at least allow the navigation. The localization of enabling the localization of the metadata descriptors, the human-readable descriptors of the metadata, is definitely on the roadmap, but it won't be it will come later. But I agree with you that it's important being able to, for example, have the same field have different labels in different languages, the same drop-down have different labels in different languages, and being able to support diverse scripts and all that in the metadata itself. I agree with you. It's an important aspect of these class of tools in general.
And I guess the other thing that I saw in that direction was that the translation process sort of has to be built in, and I'm trying to find the name of this product. I think it's called like Grant Info or something like that. I can find it again and put that on the list. But I think its translation is really good because it puts all untranslated stuff through Google Translate first, so that the user then doesn't have to do all the legwork. The user can simply make appropriate language out of the Google Translate. And the other thing about it is that it's incremental in nature, so that once if there's been a version change and you now have 14 new messages, the 14 new messages are what have to be translated and not a whole new message file. So it might be worth looking at and stealing some of their features.
Yeah, there's a standard set of open source tools. We've been using this, and actually once the localized version, the localizable internationalized version is up, what we will do is open up in this community. I will paste here, but it's for another tool. And don't change the translations because they're in Khmer, and unless you know Khmer, don't edit them. But what we have is an open environment where you can actually openly crowdsource, or to targeted teams crowdsource the localization effort. So if somebody wanted like the tool in Hindi, they would just go in a place like this, and they would be able to start contributing Hindi things. And then what we take that responsibility on is to do the quality assurance of those translations. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah,
it.
this actually looks like the sort of like the screen that they use even. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it were the were the same, you know.
Yeah, great. And we're open to suggestions about that. And also, if you find like volunteer resources and want to help translate into different languages, this community will be a great place to direct them.
Oh crap. Okay.
Oh crap! Right.
I just closed the wrong tab. I'm always closing the wrong tab with this piece of hardware.
All right. Well, we're coming up on our hour here. I just wanted to, I guess, do a quick check if anyone had any closing thoughts or other updates that you'd like to share. No? Okay. Well, we definitely appreciate you guys going through a bit of a process to talk about the mission, vision, and values. We'll try to synthesize a little bit and put a bit of form to them and recirculate them around the community to get feedback. And then also, I think, Roger, your point at the beginning of the call that a bit of a roadmap that we can discuss would be really helpful, and we'll try to draft something to have ready to discuss during our next call. But yeah, definitely appreciate everyone joining today, and and if there's no other closing thoughts,
it's 9 o'clock.
Maybe we should wrap up for today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Scott. Take care. Take care.